Hello everyone. In this series of video lessons, we will take a look at relative clauses, also known as adjective clauses. The series will be composed of 3 video lessons and each will cover an aspect of relative clauses. In this lesson, we will go over subject relative clauses. As we all know, relative clauses are important for your English skills, as you will use them while speaking, writing, or answering grammar questions in an exam. They also help you understand reading text better, especially if you know how to deal with reduced or short relative clauses. Okay, let's move on. Defining or identifying relative clauses are used to define, describe, identify, or give more information about nouns. We use relative clauses when an adjective is not enough to define the noun. For example, a green car may not be enough to define a car that was involved in an accident. When we want to include its license plate, we can use relative clauses. And when we are doing this, we use relative pronouns who, which, or that. And these pronouns help us form a new clause, and this clause helps us give new or essential information about a noun. When we are forming defining subject-relative clauses, we actually bring together 2 different sentences. But the subject of these sentences is the same. Let's take a look at the following sentences. People often watch TV series. These TV series mostly include themes such as crime and adventure. Instead of writing or saying these 2 sentences, we combine them so that we sound more natural. So the following sentence comes out. People often watch TV series which mostly include themes such as crime and adventure. Okay, there are some rules while forming relative clauses. For things, we use relative pronouns which and that. I mean, for subjects other than human beings, we use them. Let's look at the examples. This is the house that belongs to the former mayor of the city. The company that used to sell this product went bankrupt. In both sentences, the subjects are not human beings, so we used which or that to modify them. When it comes to human subjects, we use who and that. As you may have noticed, that can be used for both human and non-human subjects. Let's take a look at the examples. A street vendor is someone who sells things on a stall or in a car on the streets. A waiter is a person that serves foods and drinks in a restaurant. In both sentences, the subjects are human beings, so we used who and that to modify them. There are some things we should be careful about forming relative clauses. The first thing is that you should not add a second subject to the relative clause. People often watch TV series that they mostly include themes such as crime and adventure. Adding they here is unnecessary because the relative clause already refers to the subject TV series. People that they watch TV series for a lot of time might gain weight. The same is true here. Adding they is wrong. Another thing we should be careful about is not adding a comma before a defining relative clause. We use comma when we give extra information, but the information in the defining subject-relative clause is necessary, so we do not add a comma before this type of clause. Okay, let's take a look at the examples. A doctor is someone who treats patients. Those who want to join the club have to pay an admission fee. The relative clause tells which people in this example. As we have given essential info in both sentences, we haven't used commas. The last thing you should be careful about is subject-verb agreement. Although this looks pretty simple, many students are confused about when to use the plural or singular verb. In tenses such as present simple, present continuous, present perfect, and past continuous, this rule is important. If the subject is plural, the verb should be plural too. If the subject is singular, the verb should be singular as well. Now, in the first example, let's see what happens. People who support football teams can sometimes be fanatic. As you can see, people is a plural subject, so the following verb doesn't have the suffix s. Now look at the second one. A person that supports the poor donates money to charities. In this one, a person is a singular subject, so we add suffix s in simple present for third person singular. The same rule applies to the examples in this slide. Let's look at the first one. The boy who has broken his leg is now in hospital. In this one, the boy is a singular subject, so it is followed by a singular verb in present perfect tense. Let's look at the second one. The spectators that were watching the game were noisy. In this one, the spectators is a plural subject, so it is followed by a plural verb in past continuous tense. And in the final one, those who have completed their exams are free to go out. In this one, our subject those is plural again, and it is followed by a plural verb in present perfect tense. There is another relative pronoun called whose. We use it when somebody or something owns or possesses something. When the sentence includes a possessive adjective like his, her, their, we use a different relative pronoun called whose. Whose is the subject of the relative clause and is always followed by another noun. Now let's see how sentences with whose are formed. They are the victims. Their houses were destroyed in the hurricane. They are the victims whose houses were destroyed in the hurricane. The hotel is now open. The hotel's lobby collapsed in the earthquake last year. The hotel, whose lobby collapsed in the earthquake last year, is now open. Subject-verb agreement also applies to the use of whose. The verb in the relative clause has to agree with the noun that follows whose. The local car producer whose latest model has sold millions is happy with the result. In this sentence, model is a singular noun and it is followed by a singular verb in present simple tense. The scientist whose ideas were ignored when he was alive has gained recognition. In this sentence, ideas is a plural verb and it is followed by a plural verb in past simple. We have now reached the end of this lesson where I am going to talk about where and when to use defining subject-relative clauses. As I have said before, we use them to give essential or important information about the subject, which is a noun. In fact, we restrict the information about the noun. What do I mean by this? We narrow down the information about a noun with a general meaning. Now let's take a look at the following sentences. A hand sanitizer is a kind of chemical product. In this sentence, the term chemical product is a little vague or ambiguous. It brings to mind questions like what kind of product or why is it important? But when we add the relative clause, the meaning becomes clear, as in, a hand sanitizer is a kind of chemical product that helps people have virus-free hands. And in this one, the relative clause gives essential information and we have no other questions about the type or the ingredient of or the function of hand sanitizer. So, this is the end of the first video lesson on relative clauses. In the following lesson, I will focus on defining and non-defining relative clauses, object relative clauses, and the omission rule. Have a nice day.